Hey y'all, I am Arwen, the professional joy seeker, and I am here with the fabulous Simon, who you know as Two Spirit, here on YouTube. I've been watching Simon for, I think, at least a year, better part of a year, and he does wonderful videos, and he is a self-described Buddhist. Now, do you see, oh, I'm already asking you questions. Before I start, Simon, say hello and let everybody know a little bit about you.
Okay, so I always usually start off my greetings on my channel with "Hey up, me duck," and when I don't, my subscribers beat me up for it. So if I start a YouTube video off by saying "Hey guys," I get messages and comments saying, "Why didn't you say hey up, my duck?" So that's because I'm from Nottingham. I'm from Nottingham in England, and that's in the Midlands, right in the centre of the country. And me duck is very peculiar to our area. If we drive an hour out of Nottingham and we say me duck to people, then they don't want to, they don't even understand what I'm saying to them. But yes, I'm a pagan Buddhist. So I've followed Nichiren Buddhism. Most people know Nichiren Buddhism from perhaps Tina Turner. She's kind of one of our most famous Buddhists. So we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. And I've been a Buddhist for about 14 years. Paganism is something that I followed loosely for perhaps the last 10 years, and more so in the last year, but my Buddhist practice is still really important to me. And I think they go together quite nicely, actually. They complement each other. So, yeah, and I'm also a Reiki master, a crystal healer. So, and I've been on a bit of a journey. My family were Mormon, so I was raised a Mormon, brought up a Mormon, I should say, and but that wasn't the path for me. So I kind of went it alone.
Yeah, I've got a significant number of friends who are men and now are not, and a couple of them are pagan. Actually, one lives in Salt Lake City, and is a very open pagan. It's pretty interesting. But I lived in Salt Lake City and I was a manager of a team of about 13 people, and 12 of them were Mormon, and one was Red Road. She was a Navajo woman.
Wow.
The most fun with my guys. I mean, they made jokes about themselves horrifically. I suggested we have a family luncheon on Friday, and they could all invite their families, and one of them said, "Stop. Do you know how many people that could be?"
Exactly. Yeah, and they are lovely people. You know, I don't say anything bad about members of the church. My family are members of the church, and they're lovely people. And yeah, I married a Mormon girl from Salt Lake City. She was one of 9 girls and 2 boys. So her mum and dad had 11 children. So yeah, big families.
I kind of went house shopping when I thought I was going to live in Salt Lake. Didn't end up living there, but I went house shopping, and difficult to find a 2-bedroom. You know, most of the houses have a lot more bedrooms, and so, but yeah, I'll never say anything bad because these guys were just charming. I actually had to ask one of them specifically. I said, "Can you tell me about Mormonism?" He said, "Only if you ask." He said, "In a work situation, we are told not to bring it up."
Yeah.
And I was, you know, I learned that the Mormons are kind of vilified and by Christians, because I see Mormons as a branch of Christianity. I know that some Christians don't.
Yeah, yeah. They are the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so they put the name of Jesus Christ in their church. I think, you know, they've got history, and perhaps some other mainstream Christian churches perhaps don't like their history, but you know, you take people on face value, don't you? So
yeah, I actually assume people are going to be nice and kind and good. Wrong, and then okay. But I grew up next to a family of Mormons, so I think that also had a lot to do. My playmates, we hung out, we ran the streets together. You know, we were never told they were weird or anything like that. They were just religion, so we didn't see them on Sunday church. For my mom's explanation, she didn't ever vilify somebody for their religion. So I thank her me that way. Now,
good start in life.
how did you first hear about the word witch then? I mean, what was your very first, like as a kid, experience with that word? Was it a bad word, or how did it come up to you?
Was it a bad? Well, that's really interesting actually, because it starts in my childhood. There's two things I remember, I think, about the word witch. One is there was a program that I've got two older sisters, 5 and 7 years older than me, and they was obsessed with this program, and I'd be about 5, and it was called Lizzie Dripping. So I don't know if any people who are watching that are British viewers of a certain age will remember. It was on around 1975. That kind of gives my age away. But Lizzie Dripping was a young girl of about 10, 11 years of age, and she had an imaginary friend, and the imaginary friend was a witch. And she was a witch with a black pointy hat, you know, and a long cape, etc. And that is my first memory of a witch, was this program, Lizzie Dripping. Maybe I should go onto YouTube and see if there's any old clips or something of it. So there's that. And then in school, we used to sing a song. I can't remember all the words, but it used to, there was a bit at the end where somebody said, hide me, so the witch can't find me. If she does, she'll break my bones and bury me under the marble stones. And that stuck in my mind. Talk about conditioning, right? But yeah, that stuck with me. And I can't remember the rest of the story or the rest of the poem or the rhyme, but those words. So that's probably my first memory of witch. Lizzie Dripping and that song from school. And then paganism, probably the Wicker Man. I think, and I don't mean the Nicolas Cage kind of version. The Edward Woodward British version of the Wicker Man is probably my first recollection. I remember I was only about 8 or 9. It was quite horrific to see that end scene, you know, where he's in the Wicker Man and it's ablaze. And
they let you watch that because there's that scene where is it Elke Summers is doing the naked slap dance on the wall that he's in the other room.
Brit Etland, is it? I think.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, Brit Etland. Yeah, she was married to Rod Stewart, I believe. Yeah. I
don't blame him.
Yeah, it's quite a scene, isn't it? That's the scene that stays in your mind.
I mean, I remember watching it, and of course it was late at night, and I don't do horror movies. So my mind actually translated a lot of the scenes in a different way because I forced myself to not see it as a horror film.
Right, yeah.
Actually billed as horror, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite chilling. It's quite eerie all the way through, but it's the final scene, I think, is the shock because nobody's expecting it. So I think that's what gave it its R rating, really, was that final scene. And the Brit Etland scene, of course, in the bedroom. That would get the rating.
I didn't see the Nicolas Cage version. I actually am not a Nicolas Cage hater. I love him in a couple of his movies, but the new version. I heard too much about it and that they really sensationalized some of it.
Yeah. I went to see it. I went to see it and then instantly regretted seeing it because once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And it was just, I don't know, it was just, it didn't really do it justice. And I think like that. When there's a film that has a cult status, they should leave it in the archives because it stands the test of time. That's why it's a cult film. And to take it and do that to it was yeah, not good. And I have the collector's edition of that film, and I watch it, and it's still just as good. Yeah.
It's a really well done, and it really does address. And I believe that's where I first heard group. Is it Trapezoid that does the music for that movie?
Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah.
And I'm actually looking at our to see if we have any. Okay, no, I'm just watching to see what we have for because we've got a bunch of people. We got like a bunch of group. So yay!
Oh, hey.
Right? Hey, y'all.
Hi.
What to the craft? How did you? I mean, I know that you were Mormon, then Buddhist, and paganism is kind of wormed its little way in there. But how did you make the decision to investigate paganism as a path?
I think when I decided to leave the church, I'd been in the church for a long time. I served on the bishopric. I was a high priest. I'd gone, you know, around many different wards. I was a circuit speaker and things like that. But I got to the point where I started asking questions that they weren't able to answer, and therefore I was being given answers like, well, you need to pray about it, or, you know, you need to find the answers for yourself. And the more I questioned, the more they started to say that I really shouldn't be asking those questions, and I lacked faith. So when somebody tells you you lack faith, it just turned me off from the church. And to cut a long story short, eventually I left in phases. But I was left with that hole in the soul, you know, where you've had a spiritual practice, and being a Mormon is 7 days a week. You do different activities every single day of the week. There was this gaping hole, this hole in the soul. So I kind of looked around, and then I went to a mind, body, spirit fair. It was called Mr. Gifford's Psychic Fairs. And I went and I walked through the doors to this wonderful place where there was crystals, aura photography. There were people reading tarot cards. And Mrs. Gifford, the wife of Mr. Gifford, who's long since passed, she came up to me and she got me by the hand. She'd never met me before. And she said, do you know you're a natural clairsentient? And I said, well, what does that mean? You know, where's that come from? What does it mean? And we sat down and chatted. And through the course of that, I started going to development circles, and I practiced psychometry, which was something that was, you know, works with energies and things. So I'm always holding something in my hand. And through there, kind of met different people of different faiths, connected with paganism. And around the same time, also, I was attending a weekly Buddhist group where I was getting a lot of peace of mind through mindfulness and through chanting. So yeah, they kind of went both hand in hand, and neither groups kind of said you shouldn't be doing that. You know, the Buddhists didn't say, well, you shouldn't be following a pagan path, and the pagans didn't say, well, why are you looking into Buddhism? It's just yeah. But when I tell people I'm a pagan Buddhist, they seem quite surprised. You know, that how do you manage to follow two paths? As for the tarot, because tarot is my thing, it's what I love. I first got a tarot deck 30 years ago when I was 16. And the first time I was handed a tarot deck, there was, the only thing I can describe it as is a remembering. It wasn't that this was just familiar, it was remembering something. Now, you could say that was a seed planted from Jane Seymour in James Bond, Live and Let Die, that iconic scene. But even when I, as a 7-year-old boy, saw that film and she turned over that death card, there was a remembering. And I just felt that there was such a connection with the tarot. And then going through the Mormon church, that was a real no-no. So yeah. I kind of put them to one side until last year. And then last year, reconnected with the tarot. And yeah, from there, it's just been a journey of discovering, learning. And yeah, it's just been, and that's what led me to create the Two Spirit YouTube channel. Plus a lot of encouragement from people like Patrick J. Fogarty, who was there in the background saying, start a channel, start a channel.
So now, do you use your name Two Spirit to mean pagan and Buddhist?
Yes, in part. Two Spirit for me represents the duality of all things. So there are Native American Indians who use two spirits as a tag when talking about two genders, people who feel that they have two genders, or with their sexuality, perhaps being attracted to two genders and things like that. And that's where I first heard the phrase. But whilst I'm not transgendered, I believe that the spirit or the soul or what the energy source, whatever you want to identify it as, is has both the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And I really do think we need to still break down some of those barriers, because so many times I'll read a oracle book or a tarot deck and it will say this speaks, you know, to the divine women everywhere. And actually, you know, I get just as much out of reading tarot cards or oracle cards that speak to the divine feminine as I do the divine masculine. So two-spirit to me means the duality of all things. You know, we all have shadow and light. We're all capable of good things and doing bad things. I think, you know, it doesn't matter whether we're tapping into our feminine energies or our masculine energies. So it's that duality, really.
Very cool. That really speaks to me as a Wiccan, because in my path, it's male and female. And there's also a section, if you will. I have many friends who are transgender. I actually identify as a queer femme. I'm married to a man who understands that. But when I saw True Spirit, which is one of the tribal words for, I don't know what tribe it is, but it's a tribal word used for True Spirit. So it made me instantly things about you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I do get messages from the transgender community who say, I'm just really interested. I've come across your channel and you use the name Two Spirit. And, you know, part of my work, my professional work, I'm an equality, diversity and inclusion practitioner. And I do a lot of work with the transgender community and the LGBTQ community. But they really are, I just think that as a society, we tend to put people into boxes and we tend to feel comfortable by giving people tags. So, you know, you could say, well, I'm bisexual, but I don't identify with that. I just think we're more fluid as human beings. We're not black and white. We're very fluid. Our sexuality is fluid. The things we're attracted to, the things we have emotional connections with, is very fluid and can change through lifetime. So even the phrase two spirit isn't technically correct because there's more than either, you know. So
that's fascinating to me, and I have to call myself on stuff because I do tag things. I label and name and organize and box do on my comfort level. So that's something I have to kind of work around. One of the biggest things I ever ran into was in the 80s. One of my dearest friends was a gay man. He was also Republican. He was a log cabin Republican. And we didn't even talk politics, but it came up because we jokingly had a big party that said, Democrats only, Republicans must have a Democratic escort. It was during the Reagan years here in America. My driveway and honks the horn, and I look out and I say, JD, what are you doing in the car? Come on in. He said, I can't. I'm a Republican. I said, oh, okay, I'll come out and escort you in. It was really interesting because I'm a political animal.
Yeah.
I was a political science major in college, so I have to watch myself because I will judge people. My husband laughs at me because we'll drive past an old white man with a cowboy hat and a big truck, and I'm like, he voted for Trump.
Yeah. No.
I am profiling.
Yeah, absolutely. But we've had a lifetime of conditioning, haven't we? You know, we're told from a very early age, and I think society is changing. They're getting there slowly, and there's always that risk of going backwards with what's happening politically. But we've had a lifetime of being told that people fit into these boxes and people behave in certain ways if they identify with one of these labels. So therefore, it takes a long time to go through the process of that sort of unpicking and unraveling of years of being conditioned. So it takes time. We just have to keep chipping away and keep trying.
Yeah, I've been pretty hard on myself in that area and trying to unpack a lot of baggage that I grew up with, because I grew up in the South. I was born in '61, so I actually went through desegregation in my hometown and busing and all of the stuff people talk about. So and I'm still good friends with people from school. I mean, I've got words with friends, and he's a hoot. But you know, it's really interesting to see what happened. I group and look at the people behind. I mean, older than us, and their racial biases. Mine were kind of forcibly broken down.
Right.
I kind of was forced into as a 11-year-old or 13-year-old to deal with that. But let's get back to some of these questions because I could talk about this all day long.
Yes,
it fascinates me. Now, we know your favorite form of divination is tarot.
Uh-huh.
Use tarot the most? Do you use it for yourself? Is it introspective? Is it forecasting? What's your tarot?
Okay. Well, I'm not a professional tarot reader yet. I don't feel I've mastered the tarot enough to be able to do that, but I do practice all the time on family members. My sister had a reading from me just this afternoon. But I tend to use tarot. I do a reading for myself each morning. On my Instagram account, I do a daily draw every day, and I've not missed, and that's since the beginning of the year. So there's over 200 daily draws on there, and then I'll do a reflection in the evening as well. Sometimes I'll use oracle cards for that because I love oracle cards too. But I also incorporate it within my Buddhist practice. So particularly with oracle cards and soul cards and things like that, I'll look at the image and I'll use that as part of my mindfulness and part of my meditation as well, or for setting intentions, or for the focus of what I'm chanting about. So yeah, I use it for kind of a reflection at the end of the day and part of my meditation practice, but also for setting intentions at the beginning of the day. That's how I tend to use them.
So you use tarot to kind of guide you in what intention, or do you have your intention meditation and then find the tarot that accents it? Which came first, the tarot or the chant?
The chant came first. I've been chanting for probably about 14 years. But no, it's so I'll do a draw for myself at the beginning of each morning to have a look at what I need to focus on, I think is what I'm trying to say, throughout the day. So that is my guide for the day. And then I do a 1-card draw for other people who follow my Instagram account. And then at the end of the day, I will draw a card to use as a reflection on the day's events. And that tends to be part of my Buddhist practice in terms of my mindfulness and my meditations as part of that reflection.
Okay. Now, have you ever do you do spell work first? Do you do any kind of crafting or, for me, intention setting is a type of spell work, but a lot of people don't see that. So spell work, is it something that's part of your practice before I ask the next question?
It isn't. No, I haven't performed any spells. I did try a love spell once, which actually, after I had done it, I wasn't comfortable that I'd done it because I can't even remember where I got it from. Somebody had it tied up in a little scroll with a ribbon, and they passed it to me, and it got a candle with it. And but I kind of thought, well, actually, at the time, if I was going to go out and meet somebody, I'd want them to not be under a spell. Do you know what I mean? I'd like them to find that connection and be happy with the connection, and rather than some sort of spell attached to it. So I don't know how I'd have received that. But no, you're right. I think any sort of intention is spell work. And, you know, some people will call whatever we're trying to manifest or whatever we're trying to create is called different things by different people. So pagans might call it spell work. Buddhists might call it meditation, chanting, manifestation. Christians and Hindus and people who follow Islam will call it prayer. So it's about intention setting, isn't it? And, you know, trying to create something, even if that's a shift within yourself, to be able to be open to receive.
It's interesting when we look at like a broad perspective like that and realize that a whole lot of things in common. That that's one thing that I try to remember. One of the most, and I've talked about this before, but one of the most powerful I've ever been in was when our high priestess handed us a ball of yarn. wrap it around your waist, you hand it DSL to the next person, they wrap it, till you're all wrapped, and then you start tossing it back and forth. Basically a big web.
Yeah.
And she's walking around the outside, and she said, so you're all connected. How does that feel? And we're all like, it feels great. We're connected to my sisters and my brothers, and I'm right here with my coven, my family. She said, now imagine that web, extend it to your family, your friends. Okay. Extend it to their family, their friends. Okay. Keep extending it. Wait. No, I don't want to do that, because you've just connected to me. At that time, there was a woman named Anita Bryant, who here in the States was a...
Yes, I know Anita Bryant. Not personally.
And I said, right? And I said, you mean I'm connected to people like Anita Bryant and Hitler? And she said, yeah, you are. I said, well, can I disconnect from them? She said, sure. Out of the web.
Yeah.
Because the web won't be supported with one web cut, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was mind-blowing to me. And it's still something I struggle with.
It's a great visual to see it that way. In Buddhism, we call that I Doan, which is it's a Japanese phrase that basically means one in body, many in mind. So we may see our bodies as being separate from everything else, but actually our mind and body is connected, but our self and the environment is connected. So if you want to change anything in society, you have to start with yourself. And that web, Idura's web, if anybody wants to Google Idura's web, talks about this interconnected web with a jewel at every connecting point. And when you move one jewel, all the others ripple as well in response to that movement of that one jewel, and they all reflect each other. And it's a beautiful analogy what you just shared, but it's absolutely right. We are connected to Anita Bryant, to Donald Trump, to Nigel Farage. We're connected to those people, but if we want to change, then we have to start with ourselves. And we live by, and I believe very strongly that we live by cause and effect. So yes, if you want to see the effects, make the causes, and everything we do, everything we think, everything we say has an effect somewhere. And when you kind of live by that, you don't need to follow any rules, any dogmas. You take responsibility for yourself and your own actions. So yeah, I really like that. I like that analogy you shared with the wall. That was good.
It was very, yeah. And, that's what I say, seek joy, y'all. I do my 3 daily joys on Instagram. I have missed a couple of days, but that's part of what I'm doing, because I think firmly, absolutely concrete believe that if we have more joy in the world, we'll have less hate.
Oh, absolutely.
So
sounds so simple, doesn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
And I have days, and my husband will sometimes go, "You're not really being a joy seeker right now."
We all have those days, Arwen.
Like, no, I'm not. But so let me ask you. Let's see. A green sauce, red sauce question, but I think it's across the pond. I have to ask, what was it? Brown sauce.
Brown sauce. Brown sauce, yeah. I love brown sauce. It has to be Daddy's brown sauce. You get HP brown sauce as well as your supermarket brands. But Daddy's brown sauce is gorgeous. It's made with dates and spices and tomatoes and everything like that. But it's nice. But there's often a third sauce that often gets overlooked, which is called salad cream. I don't know if you've heard of salad cream. But salad cream, you're supposed to just put on salads, but I love it on chips. And I don't mean what you would call potato chips in a bag, chips as in from a potato, deep fat fried. And salad cream I have with everything. Hot sausage rolls out the oven with salad cream on. But I do like ketchup, and I love brown sauce. But for me, I'm a salad cream guy.
What what is it, a white sauce or what is it?
Yeah, it's kind of yellow. It looks yellow. And it's one of those mysteries. Nobody seems to know what's in salad cream. It's closely associated with mayonnaise, but it has a tangy taste. And some people often make their own sort of salad cream by mixing mayonnaise with tomato ketchup. It comes close, but Heinz salad cream is to die for. I absolutely adore it. So
I will have to see if I can, maybe Amazon can send me some. Is there an afterlife in your belief system? I'm going to answer, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on afterlife.
Yeah, absolutely. In my belief system, and actually a lot of Nichiren Buddhists will differ with their opinions on this. Some don't believe there is an afterlife. Some people do. But I believe I've walked this path many times. So I believe I've had many lives. I've never had past life regression. I've never had absolute proof, but I had many, many experiences as a child. I still have experiences now where I seem to remember things. And I spoke about this on my channel, I think, over the weekend. But, you know, sometimes you'll wake up from a heavy sleep and you've had a dream and you think, I had a dream in the night. And there's just not enough of a remembrance to grasp what the dream was. You just get little flashes all through the day. I tend to experience that quite a lot and have done since a very young age. So I remember my grandparents took me to a place I'd never been to before, but I knew the layout of the land and I knew exactly what was around the corner. I will meet people that I've never met before. It was impossible to have met them before, but I know their soul and I have a remembrance of them. So my belief is that we come here time and time again to grow and to develop as souls. And then there's something in Buddhism called what we say is mind the gap. So quite a familiar phrase that you see stepping off the tube or the trams or the trains. And it always makes me smile because on the Buddhist wheel, we go round and we go round learning our lessons, but there is a gap. And that gap is when you reach the point of enlightenment. And then as you're going round, you exit the wheel through the gap. So when we say mind the gap, it's be mindful that there's a gap and you need to, in your meditation practice, be focusing on that enlightenment, which will take you through the gap. So yeah, who knows how many more times I'll come back or any of us will come back. But yeah, multiple lives. I believe it really, really strongly with the fibre of my being that I've had past lives.
I absolutely do too. And I tell the story of doing a past life regression. Like many Americans, I have a fascination with anything British. But my particular fascination was on Elizabeth I. That was my interest. And I was sure I could tell you things about dresses and stuff like this that I shouldn't have known. And I was sure I had been in the Tudor court. Past life regression, I opened my eyes and into Sutphin training. So you actually you look at your feet and work your way up. And they say, where are your feet? And I look down and I'm like, I don't have feet. I am up to almost my knees. God. What the heck, people? Turns out that apparently the peasants were as royal crazy as we are still today. And that was my... So I was not in the court. I was simply, you know, a woman in a village fascinated with all things royal.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I'd love to do a past life regression. And maybe I will next time I perhaps go to a Mind, Body, Spirit fair, because I saw somebody that was the one I went to a couple of weeks ago and I thought, should I? I know I've got a connection with India. I don't know why. But anytime there's a program on about India, a travel program, I'm there. Again, it's that sense of remembering something. And again, just very quickly, I shared a story over the weekend, but I remember as a 6-7-year-old boy, my dad used to come home with all sorts of treasures. He'd find things in the street, people would sell him things, and he'd say, look what I've got today. And I used to be fascinated by what he got. But he was stopped by a Hare Krishna devotee. And he'd sold him a vinyl record of the Hare Krishna chant. And when he got home, he said, "Son, have a look at this." And he showed it me. And on the cover was a picture of Krishna. And again, I had that instant sort of remembering. And I'd never seen Krishna before, growing up in Nottingham in the 1970s. It's just, and there was something so familiar. And he put the vinyl record on, and he put the needle on it, and that Hare Krishna, I think it was the George Harrison album of the Radha Krishna Temple. It was just like, you know, there was something there, and I thought, this is so familiar to me. So I wouldn't be surprised if I did past life regression. I wasn't somewhere in India doing something.
Yeah, I'd love to do another one to check and see. I have a China one also, because I was reading a book in Palace, and I knew the next step. I knew the next part of the hallway intimately. So I was like, okay. You know, and that was weird for me, because I was a little kid. I was reading Pearl S. Buck, who is still one of my favorite. She's very old school, but I still love her writing. Now, let's see. It's deserted island time. Okay. You have time. 5 tools that are magical or spiritual. They don't have to be double duty if you're a Virgo. My earth signs are like, well, I'm going to take my Athame because I can cut down weeds. No! So what do you take, Simon?
Can I show you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. The only reason why I asked this is because I did a video on this in response to Kelly Bear, but I have a spiritual toolkit, which I do a lot of traveling with work. I go to a lot of conferences, lots of training events, and just lots of traveling in general. So I have this kit ready to go at any time. Now, I could say, can I cheat and just take this one item? But it's got lots of items in it, but I won't do that. So perhaps just 5 items from in here. I would have to take a tarot deck. I just couldn't be on a desert island without a tarot deck. And if I'm choosing one tarot deck to take out of my mini collection, then it would be the Rider-Waite-Smith. And I'm currently loving the Centennial Edition. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So I would take a tarot deck. I would take a spray, which this one in particular is Florida water. So I love Florida water, so I'll take one of them. I would take a crystal, and my healing crystal, which is clear quartz.
So she's beautiful.
Yeah, and my mum brought me that, so this is really, really precious, because my mum, being Mormon, buying me a crystal was a big deal, because I was like, you know, that was just her way of saying, I'm happy for you to follow the path that you want to follow. I would take my mala beads, and these ones are Tiger's Eye, which I just love these. So I would take my mala beads. That's 4. I would have to take a little travel bell. The sound is really, really important to me. So I have my big bell that I use at the beginning of all my videos, because I put myself into a space, but I would take a little bell as well. So yeah, that's my 5 spiritual tools that I would take.
I love it. I didn't know they made such small ones. I have this is my my big one.
Oh wow.
And it's actually sitting on the floor because I was using it to draw names.
Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful.
It's a gorgeous. I love it. It was a gift from one of my cousins-in-law, actually. We discovered that we follow a similar path, and I was like, wow. That's so cool. So
and it's lovely when things are gifted to you. I have a big one, which is that's the one I tend to use. It does have a base as well, so it makes it even bigger. But this is the one I tend to use. It just has a gorgeous sound, and the resonance goes on
really
quite a long time. So yeah, and the little.
And I love what it's sitting in. What is it sitting in? Is that a bowl holder, or is it?
It's the cushion, just to aid. So it has a base. It has this cushion, which is quite soft, and it just helps it with the resonance, really. So if it was just on a hard base, it wouldn't ring for long, but it just makes this gorgeous sound. So yeah, love it. And
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, so I use that daily, but I have to take my little travel one, because I just feel as part of my practice, sound is just as good for smudging as using sage or Palo Santo, or it just cleans the energies, so, and clears the energies.
And are you an air sign?
I'm Libra.
Yeah.
You could tell.
My husband's a Libra, so yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have so many Libra friends, and my niece is a Libra, that I have to, when that time of year, when it's coming up, I have to get really focused on what day it is, because like my niece is this day, my husband is this day, 2 people are this day, another. It's like all in a row.
Wow.
Yes, from the 4th to the 13th. Libras are kind of jammed in.
Oh, okay. I'm the 15th, so just past that.
Well, now I have to extend it out, because now you're one of my Libras. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Now, what kind of incense do you like? You like powdered incense, or you a rolled incense?
Yeah, I've got incense burning at the moment, so I'm really into so many incense, but I like the nag range, and this is nag meditation, which is absolutely gorgeous. I love that. But I also do a lot of burning of herbs like sage and things. So I have this little sage that I'll light as well on a shell. So I tend to light that quite a lot and walk around the room for smudging and things. But in terms of incense, I do like some Japanese sticks. When I have some in my travel case, that the smokeless ones. So if I'm going away, hotel rooms don't want you lighting incense and stuff. So the smokeless ones are quite nice as well. But yeah, I really like the nag meditation. It's just beautiful.
Well, you're teaching me a whole heck of a lot. I didn't know there were smokeless incense sticks, for one.
Really?
Yeah.
If you Google Japanese incense sticks, they tend to be, they don't have a stick in them. It's just the incense in a very slim stick, and they just burn all the way through and don't release any smoke. So
cool. And I didn't know there was a nag line. I know the Nag Champa, right? And I love Nag Champa. I didn't know there were other.
Yeah, there's
I thought Nag Champa was it.
Yeah, there's Nag Chandan, and yeah, there's a whole range. But export quality, really, really good quality. So yeah.
One of my favorites, I don't have access to it, it's a Song of India. Is the brand, and it's their temple incense.
Okay.
The first time I burned it, I was like, I must have more of this. My husband's very sensitive to scent, so I have to be really careful about how much scent I burn. Yeah, I do it really early in the day so I can air the house out before he gets home.
Yeah, yeah. I mind if I'm home, there's always incense burning, and people come in and they either get used to it very quickly, or I'm more mindful that they're coming and will tend not to burn it. But yeah.
Let's see. Am I collecting Libras? Yes, Nathan, I am collecting Libras.
Yeah, join the Libra club.
Oh, let's see who. Okay. So let's see another question. How do you intentionally, well, I know, let me do for self-care. How does Simon approach the concept of taking care of Simon?
Okay, well, in terms of mind, body, and spirit, is that, yeah, okay. Well, I follow a very strict diet, so I've been on quite a journey over the last couple of years. I was 14 stone heavier than I am now, so I got quite unhealthy. I ended up with type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, everything. So I went on a very strict diet and I got down to my target weight. So I lost just over 14 stone in 14 months. So I lost about a stone a month, which was quite dramatic. And for the last year, it's been maintaining that weight loss. So I go each week to my group, and I keep going and keep checking in. So I've been able to keep it off for 12 months. So in terms of looking after my body, I do lots of exercise. In terms of walking, I like to walk. I go out every Sunday with a friend. We walk dogs, and there's some lovely canal walks around here. I like to be outdoors. And where I work right in the heart of Sherwood Forest. And the campus where I work at the college has nature trails all the way around it. So I'm really fortunate. So I get to live in the city, but work in the woods. So I get to go out at lunchtimes every day and walk the nature trails in Sherwood Forest. And then in terms of my mind, it's through my spiritual practice, through meditation, through mindfulness. Yeah, so that's how I look after myself.
Beautiful. Now, I know somebody from Nottingham who actually lived, I think she's a fellow pagan, might be in the witch path, but I remember her talking about the Robin Hood oak being in danger.
Major oak, yeah. Yeah. Well, Major Oak is in a place called Edwinstowe, which is just north of Nottingham. So, but where I work, it's a 10-minute drive to Major Oak. And it's really sad to see it because the Major Oak is a huge oak tree that's hollow on the inside. So it was the legend says that that's where Robin Hood and his merry men would hang out or would hide inside the Major Oak. And to see it now, it's propped up with loads of sticks and rods, and you know, it's long past how it should be. But because it's such a pull for the tourists, they've got it all propped with rods and things. So it's quite sad to see it, but it's also quite amazing to see it because it is such a unique looking tree.
Yeah, probably. Kind of feels like when you know somebody should be taken off life support, but you just can't make that
call.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know,
it's a shame.
It's a crowd puller, so why would they chop it down? You know, so
yeah, that's one of the places I want to see is, you know, I want to go to where the Robin Hood legends were, and of course I want to do Stonehenge, and I mean I've got a list.
Yeah, and I want to do. We were saying just before, wasn't we? Just before we went on air, from my apartment block, I look straight into the grounds of Nottingham Castle, and that's just been given some lottery funding. It's having something like 40 million, I think, being spent on it, and they're going to transform it back to kind of like a medieval-looking castle, and it's going to be themed around Robin Hood. And so, yeah. So if you come to Nottingham and you go to Major Oak, look me up. We'll do coffee.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. What's something that always brings you joy?
Oh, what's something that brings me joy? Oh, I would say something like random acts of kindness. Simple pleasures. I as I've mentioned, I live in the sky. That's my apartment in the sky. I'm right on the top of my building. But the way my front room faces, I see a sunset every night, every single night. And some of them are so spectacular. I post pictures all the time on Facebook and Instagram, my Instagram account. But that gives me joy to watch the sunset each evening. It's just about to set now, actually. And just random acts of kindness. I believe very much in paying things forward. I'm very much about paying things forward. So I used to be really sort of, if people wanted to give me a gift, I used to be like, oh, I used to find it really difficult to accept things. And then I found that actually I can accept things as long as I can pay something forward. And I get joy in doing that. And I get joy in seeing people's reactions. And I get joy just seeing it generally where people just do something for somebody else when it's so unexpected.
Yeah, that's why I love people watching for that very reason. You can just see the look of unexpected amazement on people's faces when somebody goes out of their way to do something that's just, and it makes me happy.
Yeah, and getting back to nature, that's something that really gives me joy. If I had an office, I do have an office-ish kind of job as well as being a trainer. I have an office-ish job, but if I had to sit in an office all day and not be able to go out and connect with nature, then I would go stir crazy. So I love the fact that there's lots of parks in Nottingham as well as it being a city, and I love to go down into the parks. We had Pagan Pride here this weekend, and being down there in the park was just wonderful. And having the woodlands at work, just connecting with nature. And I love the seasons. I love to see the changing of the seasons.
Well, and if you come to America and get down to New Mexico, we have stunning We're
Really?
known. An hour, hour and a half for me, and it's people go there to have dinner simply to sit and be able to see the sunset because it's just intensely gorgeous.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds good. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Utah, and because of the mountain ranges there, you didn't get to see quite so much sunsets. But yeah. Wow.
But Utah, when I lived in Salt Lake City, I came from Louisiana and Georgia, which is flat. And they would say, you know, and Salt Lake City's laid out on a very practical map grid for people that are very practical with maps. I'm not. So my team would tell me, go towards the big mountains, go towards the small mountains. I finally had to say, y'all, they are all big mountains. And they finally said close and far away. Wasatch are close and the Osage are far away, if I remember rightly. But that made sense to me, which is just crazy because they're still big and small.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you're coming from England, where we don't really have mountains, we have rocks, but we don't have mountains, then they're huge.
I mean, driving into Salt Lake City, if y'all haven't driven into Salt Lake City, first, it's one of the prettiest places. And Salt Lake City is super clean,
Yeah.
wide streets, because the founder of Salt Lake City, Joseph Smith, planned his city so that they could turn a 6-team stagecoach, so 12 horses, 6 up and down, around in the street without having to back up or not. So their streets are already huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a really gorgeous city, and I tell people go. It's fun.
Yeah.
People are very friendly. I would sit on a park bench at 3 in the morning with my purse sitting open next to me, and I would have, this was some years ago, it may have changed, but I would have never had any about people walking past me in that city.
No, exactly. And where my in-laws lived, which was very north, just before the Idaho border, they just didn't even have a key for the door. You know, what was the point? There was just door, and I couldn't comprehend this. You know, so we've got one somewhere, but we've never used it. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's a very cool place.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you, we're getting down to the last question, so I want to know favorite meal. We were just talking about food, so what makes you the happiest to eat? It doesn't have to be something you make, it can be something you get out.
Okay. Diet Coke chicken is my favorite meal. It's one of the simplest meals to make. It's one of the most nutritious meals to make, and it sounds kind of gross, but it's just the best. And it's so easy to make. You just literally chop onions, peppers, and mushrooms. Just shallow fry them, just till they're brown and go soft. Add a bit of garlic, some chilies if you want, and then you dice your chicken, pan fry your chicken until it, you know, seals. And then you just pour over a can of Coke, Diet Coke or Pepsi Max, whichever brand. And we've got a Pepsi Max over here now that's just come out, which has got ginger in it. It's Pepsi Max ginger. And I tried it with that. That is sensational. You pour that over and you add a tablespoon of, I don't know if you had this spice, Chinese 5 spice. Don't know if you have it. We have it here. Yeah, okay. So a tablespoon of Chinese 5 spice, and just condense it down. It takes about 40 minutes, and it goes all sticky, and it's like a barbecue chicken, and that's gorgeous with some rice or, you know, potatoes or some vegetables. Diet Coke chicken, good.
I will have to try that. When you said Diet Coke, I thought, I know I'm not hearing that.
Yeah.
Diet Coke chicken.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Try it, Arwen. It's great.
Now, my next question is, let's see what people are saying. Oh, no, somebody said onions, peppers, and mushrooms. 3 things I'm no longer allowed to eat.
Oh, no.
Sad face indeed. Oh. I'd be very sad if I couldn't eat onions.
That's a shame. Me too.
I've just been told, I'm actually a diabetic type 2, and I've just been told I need to cut out all dairy. And I'm like, really?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, they said fat was a big thing for me.
Yeah, they told me salt and sugar basically, and reduce my fat. So, and that's what I did. But actually, you know, after 2 years, they're saying I'm no longer diabetic. They took me off all medication. So by losing that weight, yeah, they've just said they'll never tell you it's gone forever. They're not allowed to say that, but they said, you know, just class that you're in remission. There's no trace of it, so you don't need the medication. Just manage it by diet. So.
Sweet. My doctor would like me to manage it by diet, and I said, give me the pill, because I am. The minute you tell me I can't have,
yeah,
brain goes into I must have. So my husband and I are both working on a healthier diet. So, but that Diet Coke chicken, I think that fits right in there. So
that could do it.
Second to last question.
Okay.
Do you have a ghost story you can tell us? Do you have any spiritual encounters?
Yeah, I've got so many ghost stories. I'll share a very quick one, and then one from when I was an adult. So I've always felt that the veil between the spirit world and this world, sometimes the veil is thick, sometimes it's quite thin. And I believe that as a child, it's quite thin, because I believe we've come from new into this existence, this realm. And, you know, it's as we grow up and as we're told things aren't right or aren't true, then that conditioning kicks in again. But I remember as I was 5 years of age, and I had a bedroom on my own. My sisters were in another room, my parents in another, and I would often have visitations. And one in particular, you could say, well, maybe I was dreaming, but I was sat on my bed. I'd woken up. I'd even gone to the loo. I'd come back. I sat on my bed, and there was a lady who, at the time, I didn't know the outfit, but I could tell the clothes that she was wearing wasn't of today's or the 1970s kind of style. And she told me that she was buried in my back garden. She said, I'm under the earth in the back garden. She kept saying it over and over again. And she came a few times. And I started saying to my parents, there's a woman buried in the back garden. Now, she was telling me exactly where in the back garden. And of course, my parents weren't having any of it. And they rearranged the bedrooms, and I had to go and sleep with my next sister. My sister had my room because they thought. So there was that. And I actually believe that if anybody was to go and excavate that land, they would find remains, because it wasn't a dream. It happened many times. She came many times. And then just a very quick one. I used to share a flat with a friend. We worked at a theme park when I was 17. And we used to have strange things happening all the time. And where we'd be sat talking, and we would feel a presence come into the room. You know, you just feel like there's somebody there, and you look, there's no one there. The settee next to you would go down as if someone sat next to you, and you could feel the presence of someone there. And yeah. Jen, who I was sharing with, had a bath one day, and the bathroom door opened, and she shouts, "Get out, Simon!" You know, she thought it was me. It wasn't me. And we started to joke about it, and we started to call him Tom. So we're saying, "Come on in, Tom." You know, when we felt this presence, "Come and have a seat." You know, and the seat would go down, and we'd feel this presence. And a friend of mine was over once, and he said he had a friend who was a medium, and he brought the medium over this one particular night, and he didn't know about the Tom thing. And she started to tell us about this lady who lived in the flat. The flat we had used to be a greengrocer's, she told us, and there was a burglary one night. She disturbed them, and she was hit across the head, and she passed. And she said her name's Rose. So I said, okay. She said, so she really likes you guys, and she said, this building is going to be developed soon. You're going to be moving on. And she's sad about that because she's got a connection with you both. She said, but she doesn't like it when you call her Tom. And I was like, oh, my goodness. And then a few days later, there was a shop next door. It was like a row of shops. And I was talking to the guy, and I said, how long have you been here? He said, oh, I've been here 40 years, you know. And he remembers Rose. And he remembers the break-in, and he remembers, you know, it was in the press and everything.
Oh, wow.
So there was that sort of validation as well. So yeah, so that's my kind of my party piece ghost story that I tend to tell people. I don't tell people about my 5-year-old experience too much, but
that's real. But the Tom Rose thing is pretty crazy, right? I mean, to get that kind of validation.
Yeah.
Did you apologize to her and call her Rose thereafter?
Yeah, we did. We never made that mistake again.
Now, the very last question. Your best advice, if you had to give somebody just a bloop kind of advice to someone just starting out on their own spiritual journey?
I suppose it would be to be your authentic self. You be you. Follow your own path. If other people tell you that you should do A or B, then take that on board, consider it. But if it doesn't feel right for you, then choose C. I think life is about finding our own path. And I think we have to be true to ourselves and to our soul. And therefore, just live your truth. Be your authentic self, and you'll be fine. People will follow or they won't. And if they don't, then that's them following their path.
Beautiful, beautiful. Simon, thank you so very much. I know I bugged you and poked you a lot about coming on because I knew you'd be fun to interview. Y'all, he ran from me like a rabbit. I had to chase him down. So, but subscribe to his channel. It is a lot of fun. It's very informative. And this is going to sound crazy, but it's peaceful. I always feel calm.
Oh, thank you.
When I watch your videos. So it's very nice. Say seek joy, y'all. How do you say goodbye on your videos?
I always sign off with until next time, go in peace, and then namaste and blessed be.
Joy, y'all. Bye-bye. We'll talk later. I do have I'm taping something tonight with Maha's Treasures, so it probably won't be live, but look for that coming.